Today on Hanging Out with Kirkomania, my guest, actually, I want to start before 2017 because before 2017, before I decided that I was going to get on YouTube and start applying my limited understanding of objectivism and economics to political satire and social commentary, there wasn't much objectivist content on the internet. Yaron Brook, he had his podcast going on YouTube. That aside, I think the Ayn Rand Institute put out an occasional lecture. But before I got on and before Rucka Ali started doing content, there wasn't much content, objectivist content on YouTube. And ever since, there's been an explosion. Now everyone and anyone who's ever gotten into objectivism they've decided that they're going to be John Galt's. They're going to get on YouTube because if John Galt were alive today, he'd be getting on YouTube and Twitch and MySpace and Facebook and OnlyFans and Pornhub and LiveJournal and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and whatever means he had to communicate. And now everyone who's into objectivism they want to be John Galt. And one of those people is my guest today. He runs a YouTube show and podcast called Americanitis. It is a show that I've been a fan of. And he goes by the name Dan Sagner, but some people call him Sagner Danishold. Kirkomaniacs, please welcome my guest today, Dan Sagner. How's it going, Dan?
Oh, I am just this side of fabulous.
Hell yeah.
You're goddamn right.
We are on StreamYards today. We had some technical difficulties, which I apologize. I said I'd be here at 7. We'd be here at 7. We ran late because we were having technical issues. Took a lot of figuring out. But it's great to be here with you today, Mr. Sagner. The last video you put up on your channel, Americanitis, it was about conspiracies and misconceptions in the media. I forgot what was the word? It's an M word. I can't. Come again?
Malfeasance.
Malfeasance. That's the word. But one anecdote you told early on in that episode was you brought up the case of Ignaz Semmelweis. What's so interesting about this particular scientist?
So Ignaz Semmelweis, but before I go into that, I wanted to say that I am truly honored to be on your show because last time you had on Stephen Michael Davis and you were talking about how this is like trickle down economics, right? How he's so much bigger, right? And you're having him on your show. It's exactly the opposite this time. You're slumming, right? You're coming to me. I got 180, right? Subscribers. I have so few subscribers that I'm counting the tens place, right? And I honestly love your stuff. So, on to Ignaz Semmelweis. I just wanted to get that out there. So, Semmelweis.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
He fit perfectly. He fit perfectly into the kind of narrative that I was trying to build here, because I was going to go with someone like, what's his name? Galileo. Yes.
Galileo. I remember you brought up Galileo as well.
Yeah, but that's kind of lazy. Everybody does Galileo. And I was looking for somebody who thought differently than his peers and was shunned for it. It's automatically you jump to Galileo. But this guy here, Ignaz Semmelweis, Galileo, he died under house arrest, still writing his books and whatnot. This dude went off the wall crazy and was locked away in an insane asylum and beaten to death for his beliefs, and for his understanding, I should say. It wasn't even a belief. He had this radical notion back in 1847 that physicians could eliminate or drastically reduce the number of fevers that would take their patients after surgery if they washed their hands in a bleach solution. So he had part water, part bleach. He would wash his hands, and he saw a great reduction in the number of fevers. He was, I believe, an obstetrician. So he was delivering a bibis.
So he personally saw from just washing his hands a reduction in fevers. Like washing your hands was a better practice for physicians at the time.
That's right. Yeah. So nobody did this. And there were a couple of reasons why.
But Dan, that's just anecdotal evidence.
Blow it out your ass.
Yeah, it was anecdotal evidence until he went and proved it, right? And that was the thing. He was a true scientist. He had a hypothesis. He tested it. He got results, and tested it again. He got the same results. He said, "I know this. This is true. I don't know why it works." Right? He didn't have a theory as to why this would work, as opposed, maybe dirt on the hands. Maybe he did have some idea, but it wasn't until Louis Pasteur came up with the germ theory of infection that all of a sudden everybody took Semmelweis seriously. But at that point, all they could do was look back in history at this man who died from sepsis after being beaten and say, "Oh crap, we were wrong." And so this is a man who literally was locked in an insane asylum for his understanding. And he died for it because he knew what he knew. He followed
In other
through.
words, he went against the scientific consensus.
That he did by using the proper methods, right? The scientific method.
Yeah, he did not trust the scientific authority. And a reason why I bring this up is because I saw this going around today. I saw this tweet. Now I saw this in meme form on this left-wing Facebook page called The Other 98%. But this was from a blue check mark, I guess, representative to the United Nations. And he said, if you are not a scientist and you disagree with scientists about science, it's not actually a disagreement. You're just wrong. Science is not truth. Science is finding the truth. When science changes its opinion, like as if science is this entity, this like monolithic entity or whatever, when science changes its opinion, it didn't lie to you. It learned more. Now, I get that this is directed at maybe right-wing conspiracy cranks who don't, they're impossibly, or they're arrogantly skeptics on a lot of issues. And I've had experience with this. Like I've gotten into it. Like there's this comedian I'm friends with who years ago, he was really into the flat earth shit. And I wasn't sure if it was a bit or not, but he would post like flat earth videos and then get a rise out of people. And then I remember running into him and I asked him about it. It's like, you're not really into that shit, right? Like, this is just a bit. He's like, no, I find it really interesting. They make a lot of good points. And I remember asking him, I was like, wait a minute, but like, what about like all of the satellite images of like other planets, including Earth? What about like astronauts that have been in outer space, taken pictures, been to the moon? And I swear to God, he said, well, you weren't in that spaceship taking those pictures. How do you know they're real?
Blow it out your ass.
And at that point, it's just like, I'm not dealing with a reasonable person, but I feel like a lot of like the pro-science crowd, like this clown, to them, science, like there's a kernel of truth. Like, yeah, science is about finding the truth. And a lot of times scientists do make honest errors. And then upon new discoveries, new evidence, they have to change whatever the theory is. But to them, it's more about appealing to an authority. It's if you're not a scientist, who are you to question the so-called experts? This is like a different form of philosopher kings, especially when you contextualize the fact that with the mixed economy and today's politics, a lot of times when people are saying you got to trust the science, they're basically saying don't question my political stance, don't question my political cause, and if you do, then you hate science.
You hate science. How could you? You science denier. Now, I have to admit, Kirk, that I was a little mad with you earlier when you sent me this because I was in the middle of like troubleshooting a PowerShell script that I was running on an MDT server, and right, I'm like fully focused.
Let me just say,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, good. I accept your apology. And you sent me this, and it's just one of those one of those amalgamations of words that's so wrong that you need to just kind of take a minute. Just, all right, let's slow down. Let's take this line by line. First of all, he's not a scientist, so why the fuck should I listen to him? Right? By his own logic.
Yeah.
And if you disagree with scientists about science, is he talking about about the data? Is he talking about the conclusions that they came to? Is he talking about their methodology? No, just science. Just science. The whole thing. So that doesn't make any damn sense. It's not disagreement. You're just wrong. So if you disagree with anything, you're wrong. You're just wrong. But science isn't truth. So what are you wrong about? If it's not truth, what is it? Right? Because to me, truth is when I have an idea and it conforms with reality. It's true. If it doesn't conform with reality, it's untrue. It's wrong. And science is the process of discovering what is.
Yes.
And so if science is not truth, it's finding the truth. Okay. So far that science is finding the truth. All right. When science changes its opinion, again, what are you talking about? What opinion? Is it opinion or is it finding truth? And if it's an opinion, then I disagree with it, then how am I wrong? If it's just an opinion, it's not lying to me, right? Just the whole thing, the entire tweet is asinine, and I hate it. I hate it a lot. And so I was a little mad when you sent that one over to me. But I had you mentioned the conspiracy crazies and the flat earthers and whatnot. That's what the last podcast I did was about. And I troubleshot the issue down to one of epistemology, but of something that is removed from you. So, for example, your buddy, were you in that spaceship? Did you see the Earth being round?
By that logic, if I see pictures of the Great Wall of China or video, but I didn't take myself, should I believe that the Great Wall of China exists? After all, I wasn't there to take the picture.
Well, Kirk, you can see the Great Wall of China from space, so you can kill two birds with one stone, get up there on Jeff Bezos's rocket ship, take some pictures for your friend and say, yes, I did take these pictures because private enterprise is balling and it's going to get you into outer space. But what I troubleshot it to was this trust in an authority, right? So you're already on the back foot. Like, this guy's not going to convince anybody who already doesn't trust the authorities.
Yes.
Because they don't trust the authorities. And they're always going to find a reason why.
If you pay enough attention to a lot of conspiracy cranks, they find other experts, usually like discredited PhDs or people who might have PhDs, but aren't really, maybe just kind of go against the grain, because there are a lot of like crazy people who have such credentials. So they'll just find like their so-called experts and they say, look at these experts. And then instead of showing how they're wrong, a lot of people just say, oh, well, this person's a crack, which they might be right.
Yeah, that was an interesting cast, that last one. I've been out of the that you mentioned when someone brought up like, hey, have Dan Sagner on. You were like, yeah, that guy's just not putting out a lot of content, and that's true. It's because I'm speaking less about philosophy and I'm living it more or less. I have a hierarchy of values and I'm sticking to it, right?
What a loser. You just giving up.
What a
you're shrugging.
What? I'm not burning the candle at both ends. That's right. So I got a wife, 3 kids, a dog, job.
Look at you, big guy with responsibilities.
That's right. And I value them more than I value the podcast.
Man, you used to be cool, Sagner. What
don't trust anybody over 30.
But I want to bring it back to politics because I was thinking about this today. Like a point I've been trying to stress recently when talking about economic issues is that it's really not about economics. An example I use is the minimum wage. When you see advocates of raising the minimum wage and then you confront them with consequences like, well, some businesses won't be able to afford to raise these wages and you might drive them out of business. And then they say stuff like, well, if a business cannot afford to pay a living wage, then it should not have the right to exist. They embrace the consequences. And I was thinking about this with, the science, if it's the same thing, because when people discuss politics, I feel like altruism for most people, both left and right, altruism is just like a given axiom. If anyone doubts, if anyone doubts me on this, check this out. I've seen this meme going around from people on the right. You see this sign, danger. You are being conditioned to view your freedom as selfish. Now, I see that and I think, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to convince people that freedom is selfish. But you see this goof in a Trump hat. She doesn't feel that way. They like freedom, but they still think that selfishness is bad. What's freedom good for them? Like, what you're going to be free to, like, what, make a lot of money and then give it away and live your life like Nikola Tesla or Mother Teresa? That doesn't really exactly cut it in the cause for freedom, but let's use climate alarmism as an example. I just want to ask the chat. Don't answer this, Dan. When I say climate alarmism, who is the first person? What is the first face to pop into your heads when you think of the climate alarmist movement? Let's see what the chat says. Who is the first person that comes to mind when I mention climate alarmism? Brian Bonar says AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for those who don't know.
Right above AOC. That plucky rogue.
By the way, yeah,
right above that. How dare you?
We're using Wiki says Greta, who I call Greta No Funberg, because let's be honest, folks, like what she's really on a crusade against is having fun. Leonardo DiCaprio says Chandler. Not bad answers. Notice we're 3 names in, Mr. Sagner. Not one climate scientist. Not one climate scientist.
No surprise. I was going to say Al Gore.
Al Gore is another one. Yeah. Okay, so we got a few, but I was going to say it's Greta No Funberg, who is not a climate scientist. And when you see her go around the world and give these talks, so I guess Brian Boner says, I honestly forgot about Greta. Lucky you. Yeah. When she goes around the world, like she'll sometimes invoke science, but mostly what she does is moral preaching. She preaches about a morality of sacrifice, demands that everyone sacrifice. And if you dare question her crazy ideas, then they'll call you a climate denier who hates science. So I was wondering, what do you think? Do you think at the end of the day, when people invoke science as a justification for sacrificing freedom, sacrificing your money, sacrificing whatever it is, it's just all about sacrifice, and science is the justification? That way, if you question any of their crazy ideas, then they say, well, you're just denying the science.
You can give me all of the information about, I don't know, how about the weather in California? We can get lots of scientific information about that. We can say it's a great place to live. It's possibly the best place to live. That doesn't mean I should move there. Right? We can't just take scientific statements and then get to morality. But there's a lot that happens in between. We know what is, and then there's also a value hierarchy and a million considerations. For example, I was mentioning this one to you earlier. If the CDC were in charge of the speeds you can go on the highway, it would be 35 miles an hour, because a lot fewer people would die in car accidents. But my commute to work would take 2 hours one way. So we are literally accepting a certain number of deaths so that my commute is 30 minutes. That's happening right now, right? And
well, I saw this tweet today. It's from an article from The Nation. Pre-pandemic travel habits were destroying the earth. They must never be allowed to return. So you already see it. Like people are demanding more sacrifice.
Yeah. As soon as the pandemic started, there were all of these photos of empty cities and, weeds coming up through the sidewalks, and people like, the earth is healing, guys. It's healing now that we're all stuck inside and not consuming. The earth is healing, and all I see are pictures from The Walking Dead. Right? That's the shot when right it's coming in. You see empty highways and just cities emptied out, and nature reclaiming buildings as if it was theirs in the first place. So these people, I don't know what I watched the George Carlin bit recently about environmentalism, where he's just like, the
Really?
earth will be fine.
Yeah.
And he was way ahead of his time. But we need a little George Carlin now. Not too much George Carlin. He had some weird ideas, but a little bit.
I noticed Rick and Morty's been really taking it to the environmentalists recently. Like they had that one episode where,
Oh yeah,
like Rick, they think Rick impregnated a planet, and then they find out it's God's kids. But then Jerry ends up teaching a bunch of dum-dums that like building houses is bad. And then they all point at like the nice technology. They go bad. And the reason why is because he likes camping. And he says, no, if we build houses, then no one will want to camp. So then he just teaches a bunch of people to essentially be environmentalists. Then they did another episode where they make fun of Captain Planet, which was another classic.
That was a good one. And all of the Planeteers had just turned into like these what do you even call them? They were all like pimps.
Yeah.
Right. For Captain Planet. What do you call a female captain? Is there a female version of captain like there is for God, now I can't think of any of the gendered names we have for professions.
Why can't a female be a captain? Dude, it's 2021, okay?
I know. Captain Janeway is my favorite captain. Lay off me. I was trying to make a joke.
Okay. My bad.
It is current year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So another point you brought up on your last show was how social media is often blamed for like the rise of conspiracy craziness. And to me, this is like this would be like if 80% of the population were alcoholics and 50% knew how to drive, were licensed to drive, and only 10% knew how to drive stick. And then everyone was suddenly given a Lamborghini. And for those who don't know, Lamborghini is a very fancy, nice, high-tech vehicle. But you can imagine, and they go really fast. They're known for going really, really fast. And now, if you gave everyone a free Lamborghini in this context, you would could imagine all of the chaos and destruction and shit shows you would see all over the place. But it would be like if that happened, and then thinking, you know what? This is what happens when you give everyone a free Lamborghini. It's the free Lamborghinis that are to blame. It's like, well, maybe it's the fact that we have a serious shortage of people who know how to drive stick, not drive drunk. And that's the way with social media. That's my view of social media. Not that social media is perfect. A lot of these companies are well worthy of a lot of scrutiny, but I think social media, they have a lot of potential that they in a lot of ways that can make life better. But a lot of people use social media to just argue about politics, spread bad ideas. And a lot of people just don't know how to handle it. And it exposes people who basically, I guess this is a roundabout way of me saying, I think the real problem is that a lot of people just don't know how to think properly. And so they're susceptible to like whatever nonsense comes at them on social media.
Yeah, a lot of it's so I have a hard time blaming social media because I believe that even in its current decreased power, the cable news networks clearly have more reach and more impact than my uncle tweeting about how Obama is a Muslim. Right? He's gonna hit what 5 people are gonna see that, as opposed to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of living rooms watching CNN. Right? You're going to get way more reach, way more eyeballs, with even those admittedly diminished numbers that they're showing right now. So I have a hard time believing, because it's been
I know it's like, because I don't watch a lot of like standard and cable TV, especially like the late night stuff. And then like sometimes I'll come across a video from like the Daily Show with Trevor Noah or Seth Meyers, and then I'm like, oh my god, these videos still get millions of views even on YouTube. Who knows what kind of ratings they get when people watch this stuff live? And this stuff is still rather popular stuff. I know there are a lot of like independent content creators who think like, oh, we're taking over, and like the mainstream media is they're on its way out, and I'm not so sure that's the case.
No, I'm not either. The medium might change, but they have so much skill that they've built up over the years. They have so much they have so many people with those skills, right, that aren't looking to change over into some dumb Twitter or TikTok or whatever. They want to work for CNN. Now, CNN's not stupid, right? Neither is Fox or whoever owns all of these cable networks. I don't even know.
Well,
so they're going to change.
Koch brothers, they own it all.
They own everything. After all, don't you know? There's no private property left on Earth. But they're definitely going to make the adjustment, right? They're going to pivot and move towards the internet. They're already doing it. You go to a news article, and 9 times out of 10, it starts auto playing a video. They're putting a lot of work into this. I was actually on the news. Was it a year ago? Maybe. Charlie Baker, our once and future emperor here in Taxachusetts, decided that it would be a great idea to ban vaping, just all of it, just the whole thing, because it was this whole scare about.
I think they're trying to do that in California, and I know the FDA. It seems like every 2 years, it's like, oh, the FDA, they're like taking another step toward completely banning vape.
What's happening right now with vapes in the FDA is that they were given, I think it was 1 year to approve or deny a whole number of products. And what these products had to prove, and this drives me friggin' nuts, what these products had to prove was that they posed a greater benefit to society than the risk of kids getting their hands on these nicotine products. So in other words, like to remove cigarettes from my mouth is the benefit to this vape, right? That's, to me, that is the benefit. I smoked cigarettes and now I don't. And I know the damage that cigarettes do. I don't know the damage that this does. Maybe it will. It's vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol, generally recognized as safe when ingested. I don't know about when it's aerosolized and put into my lungs. The science is out on this. Maybe it is a little bit harmful, but it's not smoking a cancer stick, as far as I know. And so that's the benefit. And they need to prove for every single product that they wish to sell, they need to prove that that benefit outweighs the risk of some kids getting their hands on a vape, a Juul or something. And that drives me friggin' insane. How can you possibly make that value judgment? How can you do that? How can you, the FDA sitting there in Washington, make the value judgment about which is more important, me smoking cigarettes or a kid smoking a vape?
That's just not smart.
How does that happen? And why is it any of your fucking business?
Well, I think ultimately it's, they think that I've said for years that a lot of regulation, a lot of government intervention in everyday life, it's based on an assumption that if people were completely left alone, that it's ultimately a negative view of humanity, that if people were left alone, most people are too dumb, too stupid, too immoral to live life responsibly. And so, like, when it comes to something like smoking cigarettes, we got to save people from themselves, because otherwise they're just going to chain smoke. And maybe a lot of people will, and they'll end up with health issues down the line. And I would say they should, that's their consequences to deal with.
You know, they're always talking about how all these fruity flavors, Kirk, these fruity flavors.
Yeah.
Right? You get fruity pebbles, right? And I'm smoking something. Hold on, I got it right here. It's I'm not going to give any free advertising, but it's what is this? It's like a bunch of berries, right? Bunch of berries on there. And because you know who likes fruity flavors other than kids, Kirk? My fat ass. That's who likes fruity flavors. I do. I smoke cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes this last weekend because I went camping. And when I go camping, I take a pack of cigarettes and I smoke it. I go camping like once, twice a year, maybe. And I light one up. I'm like, this sucks. Oh God, it tastes so bad and it burns my lungs. Why am I doing this? And then I grab the friggin' vape. But pretty soon that choice is going to be taken away from me. Now, I don't think I'm going to go. Literally, I live across from a gas station, and I hope that I'm not going to go over there and pick up a pack of cigarettes. I don't think that I am. I think I have the willpower to stay away from the easily available cancer stick. Hey, you want to buy some death sticks? The death sticks that are directly across the road, right? That I can go over there. Nobody's taking those off the shelves because, oh, the kids. The same friggin' laws apply here. You can't buy it unless you're over 18 or 21 or whatever state you're in.
Well,
it's
yeah.
More from the Fear and Death Administration.
Well, yeah. And then you kind of see this going back to the whole thing about blaming social media for like the rise of conspiracy craziness and the fact that people don't know how to think. Like, I think you see another concrete of this with the fact that I guess Americans are, I guess, every 2 years you hear about like how Americans are more obese than ever, about how like obesity is becoming an increasing part of the population. And a lot of people know better to not just blame the ubiquity and affordability of food, particularly junk food and fast food. It'd be like, oh, well, it's McDonald's, it's Taco Bell's fault, it's Cheetos' fault, it's Pepsi's fault, Coca-Cola's fault. It's just like, well, maybe people should have control over their own diet. And, it's not, and you see how this has not really happened on a national level yet, but you see it happening in places like New York where they have soda taxes or they limit the size of the soda you can drink. And I think it happened in Denmark. They tried to impose a fat tax years ago because they wanted to reduce burden on the health system, but then people just went to Germany to buy all their chocolates and bacon and stuff, so they eventually had to do away with it. But yeah, that's just another instance where it's just like ultimately it's up to human beings to make the right choices, and if they don't, then they should suffer the consequences. But that doesn't give politicians the authority to intervene in everyday life.
No, I mean, I'm a poster child for poor self-control. Perhaps I've put on more weight than I've lost this year. Unfortunately, I've been a bad boy, but I know the solution. For me, the high-fat diet works. High-fat, low carbs. But I fell out of that. And you know what? Carbs are ubiquitous. They're everywhere and they're inexpensive. So when money was tight, we went pasta and you can go down to McDonald's and get a breakfast for $4. It's amazing. Capitalism is awesome.
Well, while we're on the topic of carbs and the fact that they're ubiquitous, they not only used to be ubiquitous, but you remember this image, where I'm going with this, speaking of like government.
Is it going to be the pyramid?
Experts. Ding, 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 ding. I remember seeing this in public schools. Yeah. And being taught this. 6 to 11 servings of carbs is good for you. Try to at least have 6 though. So if you, I made pasta last week or a couple weeks ago, and 1 serving of pasta is 200 calories. So if you eat 6 servings of pasta and you think, well, that's good, the food pyramid told me so, why would the experts in Washington from the USDA lie to me about that? that's 1,200 calories out of what, a 2,000 calorie diet right there. And I got to get my veggies in. Maybe I'll eat 3 potatoes. That's considered a vegetable, right? I'll eat a couple apples. While they might have some good nutrients, a lot of sugar in those.
Well, according to Michelle Obama, pizza is a vegetable. Remember that meme?
I actually don't.
No, there was the her thing, right? You know how each first lady has their thing, right? That they push their cause, right? Everybody wants to be Princess Diana and push their little cause when their husband's in office. Her thing was nutrition in schools.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, as part of trying to meet the requirements that they put on schools, they reclassified pizza as a vegetable because it because it had tomatoes on it. Yeah, it was that. So that was a meme for a while back then. But yeah, I have no doubt, by the way, that because as objectivists, sometimes we get criticized for thinking that businesses can do no wrong because they're private and they can do whatever they want. I have no doubt that that food pyramid was in part funded by the American Grain Growers Association or something.
Yeah, I've heard
Right.
a lot of that, and I've heard that that's a reason why there was this notion for a long time pushed that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and I guess a big funder of that campaign was breakfast cereals.
Yeah, and the funny thing about grains and carbs is that you can just keep eating them, right? So imagine you have just an entire table of just pork, right? All kinds of pork, whatever you want. Imagine your favorite kind of pork, pulled pork, right? But just that, no bread, no anything. It's just pork. You'll be able to eat maybe a sizable portion, but eventually you'll stop because your body will say, look, you have had enough pork. You've had enough fat. You've had enough protein. You can stop now. And you just can't fit another bite in your mouth because your body has shut down all those reward pathways. Right? It's not letting you do it anymore.
Well, I just think
Now imagine a
for
table
me,
just filled with pasta. Right? You could eat the table it's on. You could just keep eating because your brain can't shut off the reward pathways for carbs. It was just never built into us. It's a biological thing it's a switch in our brains. And so it's so easy to overindulge in things that are sweet and things that are full of carbs that just metabolize into sugar. Now, I can go on about this crap forever. So
I mean, I don't know much about that. Then I'm gonna have to read more into the science. This is the first I'm hearing about.
Actually, if anybody's interested, look up Dr. Fung, Fung. He's on YouTube, and he's super awkward because he is not a presenter by trade. He's a doctor, and so if you watch some of his earlier videos, he's giving talks to other doctors, and he's got all the slides, right? He's got all the data, and he makes conclusions, and he takes questions from doctors, and they're really informative. It's awesome. The later stuff, the stuff he's making now is kind of clickbaity, right? It's how to lose fat and keep it off, how to blah, 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 how to reverse fatty liver disease. It's true, right? I saw... Again, I'll go on this forever, but Dr. Fung, look him up. He's awesome about if you're interested in like low carb and what a high fat diet does. And he's not about keto. He doesn't like that. He's more lots of vegetables. He likes vegetables more than I think are necessary, but he's cool. He's a good dude, but get ready for awkwardness.
Well, speaking of YouTube, and you know, we were talking about, you said a lot of objectivists get accused of defending businesses and businessmen. So why don't we bring up this video that I came across today? I think it's from a few days ago. It's from it's about a guy named Dan Price, who years ago, I guess we'll just let the video speak for itself.
morning, we have an update on the story of a CEO who made a stunning announcement on employee pay. This was more than 6 years ago when we first told you about it. 2015, Dan Price is his name. He raised the salary of everyone at his Seattle credit card processing company to at least $70,000 a year, at least.
Now, I've heard people say this. I don't know enough about it, but Gravity Payments, it's a payment processing company with only I think it's between 100 and 200 employees. And some people said okay, this is nice, but given the line of work and the skills that are required for such a business is mostly going to be accounting and programming, that $70,000 is still a nice amount of money, but a company like that probably would not be able to get away with paying significantly under that for the skills that are needed for the jobs for a business like that. Would you know anything, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a somewhat similar position at my work. I'm a senior systems engineer, and if you tried to pay me $70,000 a year, I would call you a goof.
Hold on.
And I would find employment elsewhere that knew what this kind of work was worth. Now that's here in Boston. Or around Boston, I should say. But I don't know where did they say they were? Seattle? It can't be that different. They can't be $10,000 a year different, I don't think. But what do I know? All I can say is that my kind of work does demand this kind of pay, if not higher.
Vogger says Dan Price, that damn goof.
Yeah.
Price's decision was met with predictions of bankruptcy from his worst critics, but we're here to tell you now that has not happened. Instead, the company is actually thriving. And as Carter Evans shows us, the higher
good for them.
Yeah, I would say good for them too. It sounds like it's worked out for Dan Price in this company, but
homes and start families.
New parents and coworkers Carrie Chen and Alex Franklin can't wait to introduce their son to colleagues at work, a company they say made it possible for them to begin a family in the first place.
And you weren't the only ones that had a baby, huh?
No, everybody had a baby.
So it's a baby boom here. Why do you think that's happening?
We can afford
that
it.
Means everyone at Gravity Payments has been taking trips to the boneyard, folks.
Boneyard.
Gravity Payments in Seattle, a credit card processing company with a CEO who 6 years ago did something that shocked everyone.
And we're going to have a minimum $70,000 pay rate for everyone that works here.
You had people making $35,000 a year, but you told them you were going to double their salary.
Yeah.
And then you actually had to do it.
Right.
How'd you pull it off?
Well, it's tricky. I took the $1 million pay cut.
That's right, $1 million pay cut. Dan Price was simultaneously hailed as a hero and eviscerated as an enemy of capitalism.
Now, this business practice doesn't make you an enemy of capitalism. It sounds like it was probably a good business decision. But it is worth noting that since this guy, Dan Price, since he blew up because of this story, he has become a left-wing political pundit, essentially. And if you follow him on Twitter, he's constantly calling for more government intervention in the economy. And, right here, he says, if you wanted people to love capitalism, you would just have to make it give them the resources they need to have the life that they want. And, he, in the tweet before that, he throws capitalism under the bus for stuff like the 2008 financial crisis, which we know was a result of government intervention in housing and banking. And then the bailouts, of course, were more government intervention, government subsidies for the large banks. And then right here, he throws the 2020 recession, which was a result of lockdowns and all that good stuff. Blames that as a free market.
Kirk, that wasn't lockdowns. That was the pandemic. The virus caused it. Right. Not the response to it. The virus came into your bank account and made it worth less. Viruses.
So having a certain business practice, like giving your workers more money, giving them a raise as a means of, and he'll explain, it sounds like it was good for his business, because it reduced turnover, it dramatically increased their employee retention, and they've gotten a lot more business and revenue since. So.
Lunatic of all lunatics, Dan Price. Personally, I think he's a socialist. I hope this company is a case study in MBA programs because it's going to fail.
But that didn't happen.
So you've almost doubled the number of employees, and you've tripled business.
Yeah.
And you're still
tripled business,
paying a minimum of $70,000 a year.
Correct.
How much do you make?
I make $70,000 a year.
To pay his own bills, Price downsized his own life, sold a second home he owned, and tapped into his own savings.
I think it was a big risk.
Andrew Haffenbrack teaches at the University of Washington's Foster School of Business.
It does go against what.
So yeah, it sounds like he gave, and I think this. I'm just speculating here, but if you follow Dan Price a lot, he's constantly complaining about how other billionaires like Jeff Bezos, how they have all this money, all this wealth. He's constantly complaining about that. There was one tweet I found where he was complaining about them going to space. He was like, oh, if they're hoarding all this wealth here on the planet, like what makes you think they're going to make the world a better place by going into outer space?
Blow it out your ass.
And I can't help but wonder, because I think he thinks that sacrifice is noble. And in part of this, he thinks that he's doing this noble thing by sacrificing his wealth or his high pay for the sake of his business, which may be a good business strategy still. Maybe Gravity Payments goes under if he doesn't make that decision. But I think he also conflates that with the nobility of sacrifice.
I think that maybe Mr. Dan Price should hustle as hard as he hates. But also, I very much dislike these so-called champions of capitalism, or these capitalist apologizers like Rush Limbaugh and whatever those other goofs were on before him, calling him a socialist and he's crazy. And this, you can call him crazy if you want. You can have disagreements about how to run a business, right? That's fine. But to say that he's an enemy of capitalism, it's just asinine. He's making a decision about how to run his business, and it turned out to be great. It turned out to be profitable. Later on in the video, I don't know if you're going to keep playing it, are you?
I will.
Okay. So I just, one of the benefits of capitalism, right, is you have the freedom to make these kinds of decisions, to determine employee pay, and to say, like Ford before him, I'm going to pay more, people are going to be loyal, and I'm going to demand a lot from them. And in a small business like that, this can absolutely work, as opposed to a tightly controlled economy, such as socialism. You do not get to make those decisions. Those decisions are made for you. So in a capitalist economy, you can run a socialist business. But in a socialist economy, you cannot run a capitalist business. So enough with the poo-pooing him, right? See if it works. Trust the science. He's making a hypothesis and he's testing it, and then he gets results, and you can peer review them. Start your own company. Pay people $80,000 a year. Try different things. See what works. That's what's wonderful about this whole system of freedom. So it goes back to how the so-called defenders of capitalism are really capitalism's worst enemies.
Well, and I think Dan Price, you could probably put, oddly enough, in the same category, because I think a lot of people on the left, they use Dan Price as an authority because he spews a lot of this left-wing rhetoric now of more government intervention, more wealth redistribution. He's like a huge climate alarmist from what I've seen. And he comes from a place of authority. Like, look, I ran a business. I can give my workers $70,000 a year. Everyone else should try to give, every other business should try to give their workers $70,000 a year. And it's weird because he mentions in this article like that everyone in America should try to get $70,000. But this was written by Dan Price himself on his own website, on the Gravity Payments website. But he admits at one point here that, let me be clear, implementing $70,000 compensation structure is not feasible for every business. And I'm like, then why are you going out there advocating for this stuff like it is? And I think you'll see that right here.
People expect and what we usually see in terms of corporations and companies.
These days, average CEO compensation is 320 times more than the salaries of their...
Now, this is another issue, is that when you think of CEO compensation, you usually see it like in these headlines, like, oh, this CEO gets paid $25 million. Meanwhile, their average worker only gets like $15 an hour. But a lot of CEO compensation is based on stock options. And a reason for that, a lot of people get cynical and they say, oh, well, it's for tax purposes, which I'm sure that's a reason. But from my understanding, the reason why stock options are a form of compensation because it motivates the executives to ensure that the company is productive and profitable. Because if it grows in value, then they're going to get compensated likewise because their performance is tied to the value of the stock. But then, and from my understanding, a lot of times that that compensation isn't exactly liquid right away either.
Yeah, our good friend, our good buddy, our pal, Yaron Brook, did have a good spiel about different kinds of compensations from managers that were tried over time, and how some of them set up perverse incentives that weren't initially seen, and that stock options is a fantastic way to solve that problem. Because you want to make the business profitable. You want to, if your goal is to increase the profits of shareholders, then you being a major shareholder really aligns your incentives with the business and keeps you working hard.
And again, also, I should probably point out this video right here is from CBS Mornings, over 2.5 million views, a lot of thumbs up. So it's resonating with people.
They're typical workers.
This shows that isn't the only way for a company to be successful and profitable. Do you pay what you can get away with, or do you pay what you think is ideal or reasonable or fair?
Why aren't more companies doing this?
I would say that's the failure of this. I feel like I've been shouting from the rooftop, like, this works, everybody should do it. And zero big companies are following suit because the system values having the highest return with the lowest risk and the lowest amount of work.
Now, again, he says this as someone who operates a company that has 100 employees. And he's talking about big businesses, presumably businesses like Amazon, Walmart, or others that employ millions of people. And I remember years ago, this YouTube economist named Aaron Clary, he took like 3 of the biggest businesses. I think he took Walmart, Exxon, and Wells Fargo, and he took all of their executive pay, not just CEO, but all executive pay, said, we're going to have them work for free in the year, and then we're going to distribute their money evenly amongst their like millions of employees. Because I think Walmart has millions of employees. And when you do that, like, the workers only get like $35 for the year. It's not a lot of money.
It's not about the money, Kirk. It's about the inequality.
Blow it out your ass.
There it is.
But PriceLink's Gravity's returns are up in large part because bigger paychecks have led to fiercely loyal employees.
Our turnover rate was cut in half. So when you have employees staying twice as long, their knowledge of how to help our customers skyrocketed over time. And that's really what paid for the raise more so than my pay cut.
And I think you alluded to Henry Ford earlier, and I've read into that Henry Ford, this was a major reason for him for the $5 workday. Was it attracted the best workers, mechanics, engineers in the industry, and it reduced a lot of turnover. And that's really important when you have high skilled jobs, because then if people leave your company, you have to retrain them, which could lead to a loss in productivity. But when it comes to lower skilled jobs, I'm not so sure that turnover is that much of an issue because you can easily train someone right away.
Now, does he have somebody who cleans his office? And if he does, do they get paid $70,000 a year? And if they do, are they just the best damn maid that you've ever seen? Because you would have to clean an office really well to be worth $70,000 a year. I don't care if you're in Seattle, Brooklyn, Bumshart, Nebrahoma. You gotta that office better be spotless.
As Wagner says, it's the ethics, stupid. And you know what I have to say to that?
You're goddamn right.
Seeing them where they are.
The company did take a hit during the pandemic, losing 55% of its business in March 2020. At one point, Price figured Gravity was only 4 months away from failing, but it bounced back after its employees voluntarily took a temporary pay cut.
We reduced our salary to 40.
I remember Dan Price tweeted a thread about this, and put any disagreements I have with the guy aside, I did find the thread interesting because he talked about how he organized his employees and said, we're going to have to make some cuts or else this business is going to go under altogether. And it sounds like a successful story.
$40,000.
Yeah, I think we took each about somewhere around 60%.
Are you back up to normal now?
Not only back to normal, Gravity repaid us all of the pay cut that we had voluntarily given up.
Are we gonna get a little playpen in here for you?
Price says baby Thomas is one of 60 new additions to the company family over the past 6 years. He also claims the number of employees buying homes has gone up tenfold.
We are right on track for the American dream. You know, we have a beautiful baby boy, a wonderful home, a beautiful life. We're not only just living, we're able to thrive.
And they're able to say thank you to the man who made it possible.
He has his dream car. We're like, hey, let's if we all chip in just a little bit, we can make it happen. And we did.
Oh my God! My employees had done way more for me than I could ever do for them. So the fact that they wanted to get me such an unreal, amazing gift, it's pretty special. I don't know if I can put it into words.
You could have afforded that with your old salary.
Yeah, that's true. I'm way happier now than I was before.
Well, he sounds happy. So again, good for Mr. Price leading a successful business. But I'd really wish he would shut the fuck up on these on this crazy anti-capitalist rhetoric he spews on his Twitter account.
No kidding. And I find it a little creepy that they're talking about, like, look at all the babies that were born.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I didn't know what to say about that, though.
I don't really know what it is. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's kind of like a little bit of social engineering, maybe. Like they think that because these businesses are part of society, that they should be working towards a better family structure or something. We were talking about earlier the whole family values thing, how that's never it's never defined. What does it mean? I made a family. What about my values? Are those family values because I have a family? What is define your terms is what I'm saying.
I thought I sent that to you because of I thought it was something that Mr. Price said. Oh, here it is. Let me
Mr. Price.
Mr. Price. Yeah, for such a pro-family country, we really don't act like, oh, I didn't bring it up. Boom, there we go.
This was another one of those confused tweets that I was mad you sent me because I'm like, oh no. All right, let's deconstruct this. But billionaires pay $0. I got to do the whole Kirk nasally voice whenever I read something I disagree.
$0 in taxes when we know that is just not true, folks.
Bull honky. Balderdash. What is it? The top 10% pay like 90% of the income tax or something like that. I don't know. It's some ridiculous. The bottom 50% don't pay any. But billionaires, they pay $0. Not their fair share. $0. $0 in tax. Nothing. Where does he come up with that number? I want the receipts.
Well, I think again, this gets because of the whole their net worth is valued in stuff like stock options. So when you hear that, oh, Jeff Bezos, his net worth increased by $40 billion, which is largely due to Amazon growing in value as a company. So it's framed by people in the media and politicians and commentators that Jeff Bezos just made another $40 billion. And because he didn't liquidate that stock, he's not getting taxed on it. So then they say, see, he made $40 billion and he's not paying any taxes on it. Right. I think that's where the notion comes from. Here's a tweet I was talking about earlier. Yes, I'm sure the same billionaires who spent their entire lives on Earth hoarding wealth for themselves are now going to space to make the universe better for everyone.
Well, you know what? If we can get people into space, it's instantly better for everyone. Because before, it was just there. And so if you can just shuttle people into space so that they can, I can see my house from here and wave, that's already better for everyone. Whatever.
Well, I actually saw another. Where is it? Here it is. The head of the United Nations is not exactly on board with the notion of billionaires heading into space, as he made clear at the opening of the General Assembly in New York.
Well, they don't like billionaires. Why wouldn't they want them all in space? Get rid of them.
Isn't it funny? Dan, we started this episode with someone from the United Nations virtue signaling about, the importance of science. And now the UN, where is this guy saying like, well, isn't it great that we're going to space? That billionaires, they're using their money to explore space for science reasons, but then it's all, they're probably just, they're going to hoard their wealth.
Oh,
they're going to turn Mars into a tax shelter.
They're going to, That would be awesome. I want to see that. No, I think it's great. I'm bullish on space. We got to get off this rock, man. Especially, I mean, how do you square this with the rhetoric about how it's too late, climate change is going to kill us all? All right, well, like, let's get off the rock then. Like, who says we need to stay here? That's a divine right of stagnation to a planetary scale.
I've seen climate alarmists say that, like, look, we're landing all these probes on Mars and we might go terraform. And I think these scientists might know a thing or two about climate change. And the way I think about it is like, if we can figure out how to terraform Mars, why wouldn't we be able to figure out how to adapt to climate change?
I love your stupid sound machine, man. Well, there's that the CO2 remover machine that I can go find it somewhere, but that recently just started running, removing massive amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere.
You mean trees? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. The Earth is getting greener and greener. There are a lot of climate change is this whole weird friggin' topic, and there's so many facets to it. If anybody doesn't, I mean, check out Alex Epstein. He's at climatetalkingpoints.com.
Yeah, I was thinking about invoking him earlier when talking about, you know, whether or not the real debate about climate change is about science, because often when he talks about it from a morals perspective. What's moral? What's moral is that human beings flourish, and that cheap, plentiful, reliable energy enables human beings to not only flourish, but especially in the context of climate related hazards. I mean, climate related deaths are down by like 96% over the last 100 years. And all this new technology, the fact that we're able to mass produce and mobilize goods and services whenever there's like a disaster, like a tornado or a hurricane or a flood. I mean, I talk about this a lot in my videos, especially when responding to other climate alarmists. So
one of the greatest things that both it's a combined thing. Him and Don Watkins contributed to my mind was the idea of framing, and how that puts into perspective a lot of these arguments. How two people can come to two completely different conclusions with the same data, and it's because framing. How are you framing the conversation? Are you talking about, you know, this idea of a Gaia Earth and we need to take care of it? Or are we talking about human flourishing? Because if you look at it from one perspective, you're going to have a completely different idea of what we need to do over the next 100 years, as opposed to if you look at it from a human flourishing point of view, you're like, we need to burn more fossil fuels. We need to get nuclear up and running. You know, we need to be aware. Be aware. Let's honestly look at the science and see what needs to change. But third world countries are not going to get out of their hovels with nuclear power, right? And we're not going to be installing wind turbines and solar panels in, you know, South Africa or wherever. It doesn't matter. It's just not going to, it doesn't work here. It's as he calls them, unreliables. That's another good example of framing, right? Just using a different word for those things. They're not renewables. There's nothing renewable about them because they require physical objects here on Earth that need to be replaced, and that do require maintenance and replacement. They're not renewable, but they are unreliable. So let's call them that. And he's so good, Alex. He's another one that he's a little awkward to watch at first. I think he might need to work a little bit on his presentation, but
I don't know,
better than I am.
The time I saw him, he was standing in New York City during the climate protests with the sign that said "I love fossil fuels" and just taking on the world.
I don't know. He looks like a big nerd, but I love him. He's clearly doing a lot more for the cause than I am, so I give him props there. Alex is great. He went up against AOC, and it was this whole thing in what was it? It wasn't, you know, it was Puerto Rico, where they were shutting down. Was it Puerto Rico? They were shutting down a coal plant. Did you see this? There was this whole
Yeah, well, I remember he was talking to like the House of some committee on the House of Representatives, and I think he went at AOC and I think he also went at Katie Porter, and then like he had a nice back and forth with Lauren Boebert, and I thought at the time maybe Lauren Boebert isn't too bad, and then the other day she was at some religious event talking about how we need God to replace all these corrupt politicians with virtuous men and women of God, and I was just like, oof.
Big oof. Yeah, you showed me that clip. I have a hard time watching them because, yeah, I grew up Catholic, but also I don't like this kind of Schadenfreude, right? Like watching people make a fool of themselves. And here's a whole stadium of them, and it just all cheering about the invisible sky daddy that should be in charge of our government. What the hell?
She specifically said we shouldn't be looking to government. Government should be looking for the church for answers, something along those lines. And it's just like, and I found this like the day after I recorded my segment about how conservatives are laying the ground for theocracy. And I mostly focused on intellectuals and commentators that are popular in the conservative movement. I didn't really invoke any politicians. And now you're already seeing it manifest politically in goofs like Lauren Boebert.
I didn't realize I was listening to something. I forget what. I listened to a bunch of crap. But I didn't realize that I always conflated the terms Republican and conservative because they're usually used right next to each other interchangeably, but they are not the same. And the Republicans were not a religious party until the conservatives, they were a completely different party, and they were very religious based, and then they kind of merged with the Republicans. And it sucks because before I took philosophy seriously, I was looking at my huge bevy of options here in the United States for a political party. You got, on one hand, you got the Democrats, on the other hand, you got the Republicans. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm a Republican because these people are crazy. And then it became philosophically awakened. I was like, crap, I am a man without a home.
Well, yeah, often people will ask me like, what's with these rich people like Bill Gates, or even a Dan Price, you could say, that we just talked about, or a Warren Buffett, all these big tech people who are making a lot of money in Silicon Valley. Why do they keep voting Democrat? And I think there are a lot of reasons, but I think a big reason is they see what the Republicans have to offer. And even if they offer lower taxes and fewer regulations, when they see people like Lauren Boebert say crazy shit like that, it's a huge turnoff, and it's hard for me to blame them.
Yeah, certainly doesn't help.
Fogger says you have zero options.
Yeah, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's a constant
the friggin' libertarian party who wants to sell heroin to little kids. Like, get the out of here.
But Dan, they agree with us on 90% of the political issues.
Blow it out your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I have my own soundboard.
Blow it out your ass.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then a lot of the crap libertarians, they'll say, why are the objectivists so hard on us? We invoke Ayn Rand from time to time. We agree that taxation is theft, and then they throw objectivist epistemology and ethics into the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
They run to Noam Chomsky on foreign policy. They dive on grenades for the Confederacy and the whole Civil War debate, and it's just like, oh well, maybe you should. Maybe you should look in the mirror.
Yeah. And that's, the Libertarian Party could have gone anywhere. But that's the problem, is that it could have gone freaking anywhere because there are no principles guiding it. Right? It ended up where it is now because it's rudderless. There's no, you can't look back at any principles to decide what's going to come out of your mouth next. Right? When your only principle is just liberty, uber alles, and you can't even define that term because you don't have a foundation of ethics behind it.
Dante Inferno says they do love. I know they love Noam Chomsky. I wasn't sure about Howard Zinn, but it honestly would not surprise me.
POV, you're a libertarian, We have a good community. You do, I
have to
should
bring
say.
this up when talking about how the problem isn't social media. And this somehow got in my Twitter feed. Someone tweeted about this the other day about this guy who won the lottery years ago. And then after 8 years, he won 10 million, approximately the equivalent of $15 million. And then he blew it all in 8 years and ended up having to pick up a day job again. But I guess this is an old story that was published back in 2013. But then it goes back to, I mean, you can even invoke Francisco D'Anconia's speech in here that, it's not about the money. It's about people don't know how to manage their finances. Even if you gave them a lot of money, they'd be broke again before they knew it.
Oh, yeah. It's a story you hear over and over with the lottery, right? I mean, people who play it, generally people who play the lottery, surprise, aren't great with money.
No,
I'm not a financial whiz either. I have my own problems, but I don't play the lottery because,
Well, you got to ask why I occasionally play the lottery when the jackpot is high, but when a lot of people who play the lottery, they're probably looking for that as their ticket to be rich because they're probably never going to do it in their own career through a lot of hard work and saving. And I just know from working at a liquor store for a few years in high school and college that a lot of the people that play the lottery every day, they spend, probably hundreds of dollars a month on lottery tickets like Daily 3, Daily 4, Powerball, Mega Millions, all that crap. And then you'll kind of hear gossip from other people in town about how these people are also like behind on their mortgage and all that crap. And oof.
Yeah, I knew a lady who paid her rent that way with scratchers. And these are, they're people who want the effects without the cause.
Dante Inferno says Adam Kokesh. I know that's a big libertarian, but I guess he's a big fan of Howard Zinn. Doesn't surprise me. Does not surprise me.
No surprise there.
Vermin Supreme. I don't know much about Vermin Supreme other than he's a goofball who walks around with a boot on his head. And every time I listen to him, he sounds like a total hippie. And his Ayn Rand called the libertarians the hippies of the right. So if the boot fits...
The boot fits. What else you got for me, Kirk?
That's really it for today. We've been going on for over an hour. I can still hang out for a few minutes.
Yeah, one of the things that I had brought up to you.
Maybe I should ask, are there any questions from the viewers? We got viewers on Twitch, Kirkomania.
Throw it out at me. I told everybody to ask ridiculous questions and see me try to answer them with a straight face. One of the things that I brought up initially when we started chatting. Oh, I can hear myself on a delay.
Uh-oh. Not my fault. What
did you change? Hold on.
I didn't change.
Look
what you did, you little jerk.
What if let me close Twitch and see if it goes away. Yeah, it did. Okay. Somehow it must have been playing through Twitch as well. I had Twitch open so I could watch the stream.
Cumulus says, I've heard that a lot of people who win the lottery will lose a lot of that winnings immediately because it gets taxed as income.
That's true. So when you win the lottery, you can choose to pay out in two ways.
Yeah.
You can choose to pay out with monthly payments with a low taxation or lump sum with a huge taxation. And a lot of people who, want that big payday choose the big lump sum. And so what, like 40 to 50% of it just gets Pac-Man'd up. By big government.
Hey, they got to pay their fair share, okay?
Yeah, that's right. So, of course, the government gets funded by the lottery. That was originally a way the colonies decided they were going to fund the government was through lottery. So you would, everybody would chip in whatever money, and then someone would get a payout, and the government would keep a bit. And that is, by the way, one of the ways when people are like, well, in your capitalist society, how would we ever fund the government? And I liked your point where we would have so much wealth that just a billionaire would fart and the government would be funded. because it'd be like $5,000 checks or whatever. Is I think what you said.
Well, yeah, everyone would be making
that's
so
another
much
one.
money that
Lottery.
$5,000 would just be like, oh, it'd be like an insignificant amount, and the government would be so small because we'd like, especially the federal government. It's like what be $700 billion a year. Right now, they spend way more than 4 or 5 trillion. Hard to keep up at this point with how much they've gotten drunk with all these stimulus bills and infrastructure bills.
Now, but as I like to say, the same thing about the roads. It's like, shut up about the roads, okay? Goddamn roads, they'll be fine. Look, the state can take care of them for now. That's like the last thing we need to worry about.
Yeah,
that's way the hell down the road. Can we at least like secure, I don't know, women's rights to their own bodies? Can we do that first? Can we define what life is? Maybe if we're supposed to be.
Don't talk about abortion.
No,
You're going to get.
I'm going to. Here we go, motherfucker.
Okay.
No. So
I got into it with abortion the other day on a video because I mentioned that I don't like using the term pro-life. I use term anti-abortionist because I think that abortion rights are pro-life, folks.
You're goddamn right.
And people got all mad and started a whole shitstorm in the comments.
One of the things that friggin' drives me crazy is that people you hear them say like, why is the government involved? The government shouldn't be involved in a in a woman's body. They shouldn't be involved. No, this is exactly where the government should be involved. The government exists to protect individual rights. And so if they can't define what is an individual or who has rights, the hell is it doing? This is integral, as a matter of fact. This is exactly what they should be doing. And unfortunately, things are going the wrong way, but that's because Roe v. Wade was a terrible court case and blah, 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 blah. But we need to secure basic shit like that before we can worry about the damn roads or how we're going to fund the government. I can see a nice intermediate step being a flat tax of 30%, 35%, lowering that tax as the government needs less and less money because it's providing fewer and fewer services. But again, it's like one of these down in the weeds issues that I feel drags everyone down to this arguing about semantics. And I'm like, no, principles, freedom, liberty. That was another thing. People are using the word freedom wrong. And I get so many, like, all these things spinning around up here, and I want to write these podcasts, but
that's why I'm very harsh on a lot of the conservatives, because going back to that Boebert clip, she mentions at some point that, rights come from God, just kind of like in passing, like as if it's like a given, like, yeah, that's where rights come from. And as James Valiant said, if God can give rights, he can take the rights away. And they're just kind of arbitrary at that point.
Yeah, it does nothing. It adds nothing to the conversation. You've just posited something arbitrary. And it adds nothing. It removes nothing. It's nothing. It can be easily dismissed as just ignoring it. And God gives rights? Who says? When? When does that happen? At conception? Completely arbitrary. Heartbeat? Why? Why is a heartbeat what makes a human?
What is the least objectivist media either of you enjoy? What do you mean by, like, do you mean like media network, media personalities? Do you mean like art, like movie or television show or novel that kind of goes against objectivist values?
Evil shows that promote evil values.
Art, movies, novel, etc. So do you have any in mind, Miss Sagner Danishold?
Non-object, well, or like anti-objectivist.
Well,
almost.
I don't think there's. I've been trying to read bits and pieces of the Romantic Manifesto, and from my understanding, there's technically no such thing as objectivist art. I think Ayn Rand considers Romanticism to be like the type of art that you would see from objectivists, I guess. Maybe I'm not wording that correctly. I mentioned this in a stream that I did not post, but a movie I watched on 4th of July was Born on 4th of July, and it's made by Oliver Stone. And I know Oliver Stone is very anti-American with a lot of his views, but have you seen that movie, Dan?
Nope.
So it's based on a true story and it's very interesting because it does connect ideas with consequences. And it's about this kid, and he grows up, and like it starts with him watching the John F. Kennedy speech saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." It's very explicit that he grows up in a religious household. He's religious himself. And then when he gets called on to go serve in Vietnam, to go serve for America in Vietnam, like he gets recruited by the Marines, he's all about it. He's all about, oh, what can I do for my country? This is our World War II. This is my chance. And he's even arguing with his high school friends about it. And one of the other guys says, look, I'm not so sure about this war. Like, I'm not so sure the communists in Vietnam are a threat. I got to look out for me. I'm looking into starting a business. And he's mocked for it by Tom Cruise's character. The character is played by Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise, he ends up getting paralyzed while over in Vietnam. He comes back, and then he just slowly unravels. And then there's a breaking point where he tells his mom, like, oh, it's all bullshit. You know, the war was bullshit. Jesus is bullshit. And I'm not saying it's like a great movie, but I really appreciated that aspect and theme of the movie, even if I have a lot of disagreements with Oliver Stone.
Here's a hot take for you, Kirk. My favorite. I've actually had two answers for that question. So the first, my favorite movie of all time is Airplane. And it's not necessarily anti-objectivist. It's just nothing, right? Yeah. It's bubblegum. You just chew it and it's fun. It has no content really to speak of. There's no deeper philosophical themes. My second favorite is 12 Angry Men, which is like just what a they made a movie about epistemology. It's beautiful. I love that movie.
I need to watch that movie. I've never seen it, but I remember a YouTube channel did a whole video about it, about like it's like a YouTube channel about argumentation style. And they said they used that movie as a good reference for how to argue.
Do yourself a favor, watch the original. It's so good.
Yeah. I think they referenced the original. It's like, it's black and white. It looks like it's from the 50s.
It's black and white, but it doesn't suffer from that thing. Way back when, where people would be like, dialogue 1, pause, dialogue 2, pause, dialogue 3, right there. Nobody talks like that, and so these people are all talking over each other, and it's a bunch of people. It's gripping the whole time. You're on your edge of your seat. It's great. And there's like this one dude, he's mad racist, and they deal with it in like the perfect way. Go watch it. But Rick and Morty. I said it, buddy. That is pretty anti-capitalist stuff right there. Rick and Morty. The last episode there with Evil Morty, it's basically late stage capitalism, and he has to escape it by ripping a hole in the universe.
I've heard a lot of people say that the strong theme with Rick and Morty is nihilism. But the thing with Rick and Morty is it often lampoons a lot. Like it spends an episode lampooning altruism. It lampoons, as I mentioned before, environmentalism. And I just think like a lot of the jokes, even that are not really that deeply philosophical, are just really funny.
Yeah. I was disappointed with the latest season.
Me too.
Yeah. So the previous
season, hit or miss last season.
I always enjoyed the aspect that Rick was like this god character, and he could get out of anything because he thought his way out of it, and he was just the smartest guy in the room. Yeah. Shut up, I'm smarter than you. And he, whips up some doohickey gadget and he solves the problem, saves the day, and doesn't give a shit about it because he's done it a million times. And they're always alluding to all of these adventures that they're having that you don't get to see. And a lot of great aspects like that. And it seems as though in this latest, I do agree that Rick is a nihilist.
But here's where
in this latest season, I feel like they said we need to explore Rick more. So let's take away that I can always save the day thing and replace it with rampant alcoholism and highlight other characters, and let's explore all these other pieces. Rick was plenty complex enough. Remember that episode with Unity? And at the end, he's coming down from a multi-day drug binge, and his grandkids friggin' hate him, and he goes into the garage and he tries to kill himself. That was a powerful friggin' scene for such a goofy television show, animated cartoon. Well, this dude just tried to commit suicide. That's really deep, and that's something they could explore. Like they were already there, and I feel like they're just trying to they're trying to make problems that don't need to be made. I don't know. I was really frustrated by this last season. The stupid one with the sperm all running all over this. I didn't like that one.
I actually kind of liked that episode.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
But no, there were definitely some where I watched and it just got there were a couple episodes that only got like a chuckle or two out of me, and I was like, Whereas like when I first binged that show, there were multiple episodes where I was crying, laughing. But I'm starting to wonder because like all of the episodes are intertwined, and like there's part of me that's hoping that they have some long-term plan with Rick where he kind of overcomes his nihilism, but maybe not.
I don't see that. I don't see that in the arc. I don't see that in the writers. I just don't think that that's the way they're going to take him. I don't know where it's going to go, and it's not. So yeah, Rick's a nihilist. He turned himself into a pickle. Funniest shit I've ever seen. But that's another bit, right? Where he tries to kill himself. He turns himself into a pickle to avoid having to go to therapy with his family. Like, this is clearly a broken man, and you can explore that shit. But they say, you say Rick's a nihilist, and I kind of agree with that. But then there's that one where they split themselves into two after they split themselves into two and then into 32, right? They keep splitting and splitting and splitting. And finally the last Rick is there, and he's floating through space, and he's like, I'm okay with this because he saved Morty. So something does matter to him, more than himself, even, right? He so it's more important to save Morty than to save myself. I've had whatever his thought process is, it doesn't matter. He cares about something. So he's not entirely a nihilist.
He cares about his daughter, and it's clear this is kind of what makes me think that they might have an arc is that like they've kind of touched upon his like past love life, that he's still broken about it. And I was wondering if they were ever going to like kind of revisit that. And I don't know.
He loves his daughter so much he split her in two and sent one into space to take over.
But he made it random at
least.
He made
so even he didn't know. What an asshole. Those are the wonderful, just the mind bending, like the story train and stuff that just kind of makes you think of all of these meta ideas. I don't know. I sound like an idiot, but because everybody, Rick and Morty, you need a PhD to understand. Like, no, you don't. This isn't Inception, which they also lampooned.
Well, no, someone said that Rick and Morty, and I thought it was a good comparison because as big as a fan as I've been, people said that it started to become like the Big Bang Theory, where the fans became insufferable and up their own ass about how smart the show is. Now you have to be smart to get all the jokes. And I'm like, I can see that.
Here's a hot take for you. Big Bang Theory is blackface for nerds. What are you going to do with that one, Kirk? Bat it back at me.
I didn't know you were going in that direction.
Nobody ever does.
Blackface for nerds. So is that like, just the equivalent of someone wearing like nerdy glasses when they're not a nerd? Like what?
It's nerd face, right? It's kind of geek chic kind of.
Remember internet, like hot girls used to do that. Like they would just like put on nerdy glasses and wear a Star Wars shirt, be like, I'm a hot nerd. And it's like, are ya?
Yeah, they find like some PlayStation controller and they're holding it in front of an Xbox. And they're like, I'm a gamer. Like, those don't go together.
With their like Pokemon underwear.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Anyway.
No, I didn't know you were going to go in this direction, Kirk, but we're running up on that time. This has been awesome. I'm really thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. Wish we did not have technical difficulties. I will accept full responsibility because the buck stops with me, folks. That's what being objective is all about. You got to take responsibility. Deal with reality.
The president of objectivism. The buck stops with you.
Anyway, where can people find you?
I am not on Twitter. I deleted my Twitter in January. No, I stopped using it in January, but whatever. I haven't been on there in a while, and I think Americanitis is still technically up. You can do at Americanitis Tech, TEK, because we used to be on the Tech Side Network, which is now defunct. So I am only on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and type in Americanitis. That's American ITIS. Yeah, go find me there. Subscribe. I only have like 180 something subscribers, so it's lonely over here.
We're not always politically correct, but we are correct about politics.
We may not be politically correct, but we are correct about politics.
And thanks everyone for hanging out tonight on Twitter. I hope to get this up to YouTube as soon as possible. And okay, Mr. Tumulus is saying Dan took down TechSide, an inside job. Yes. Anyways, it's been fun, folks. Thank you again, Mr. Sagner. My name's Kirk Wilcox. Have a wonderful evening, folks.